Sent. We're teaching through the New Testament book of Acts, and today we're going to step back, pick up the last passage found in chapter 19. It starts with this. Chapter 19, verse 23, about that time there arose a great disturbance. Well, this great disturbance has a name. Historians refer to it as the Great Ephesians Riot of 56 AD. So what happened? What would cause a riot? What would cause people to begin rioting? What does it now? There have been a few riots in the years past. How about this? Remember this one? This was the Minneapolis riot, when an unarmed black man was choked and killed by a white police officer. What was the cause of that riot? It was racial inequality. Or this one. This is like Tank Man. He stood in front of a line of incoming tanks. Well, why? What caused this riot? It was human rights violations. Or a little closer to home, Ames, Iowa. This one, students were tipping over cars and they were taking down light posts. The Visha riots. What caused that? Beer. Is that fair? The Visha riots, not so noble. It's like someone once said, you bring the alcohol and I'll bring the bad decisions. That was the Visha riots. What about this one? Acts chapter 19, the great Ephesian riots of 56 AD. What caused it? Well, here's a clue. Verse 23. About that time, there arose a great disturbance about the way. The way. Before following Jesus was called Christianity, it was called the way. Well, why? What did that mean? It means following Jesus is more than a belief. Following Jesus is a lifestyle. We believe certain things, and because we believe those things, we behave in certain ways. We believe that God is good. We believe that Jesus is the way, and so we trust him by following and doing life his way. Verse 24. A silversmith named Demetrius, who made silver shrines of Artemis, brought in a lot of business for the craftsmen there. See, Demetrius, this guy was the head of the labor union, and he was the primary instigator of the great Ephesian riot. A little context. Ephesus was the home of the temple of Artemis. The temple of Artemis, it was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Beautiful, massive. This thing bigger than 2 football fields. Verse 35. Doesn't all the world know that the city of Ephesus is the guardian of the temple of the great Artemis and of her image, which fell from heaven? Fell from heaven. See what happened a few years before this passage was written, a meteorite came streaking down through the sky, landed in the city of Ephesus. That meteorite, it became the centerpiece of the temple, and it was believed to represent Artemis, the goddess of fertility. Fertility. See, if you were a farmer back in those days and you wanted to have a large litter, ask Artemis. If you were a couple and you wanted to have a baby, they didn't have fertility clinics, but they had Artemis. As you can imagine, this was a pretty significant marketing opportunity. And so people like this guy, Demetrius, they made little stone statues of Artemis that people could buy, and then they'd bring them to their house to daily seek her reproductive favor. Archaeologists today have actually discovered some of these little stone statues. And I was going to show them to you on the screen until I actually saw one. Awkward. Let me put it this way. Artemis was very committed to the symbolism of motherhood. At least 12 breasts on every single statue. You're not getting a picture of that. Nobody had to wonder what Artemis was known for. The messaging was very thorough. Enter Paul. Paul entered into that situation and he said these words, verse 26, gods made by human hands are no gods at all. You and I hear that and we're like, well, yeah, that seems fairly self-evident. But this guy, Demetrius, he heard that and he gathered the business leaders of the day together. And here's what he said, verse 25, you know, my friends, that we receive a good income from this business. See, they didn't ask, is what Paul teaching true? Here's what they asked, is what Paul teaching good for our business? And it wasn't. If people stopped going to the temple, hotels, motels, you know, all of the people who were selling products, they were going to take an economic hit. Fewer customers, fewer sales, less income. Here's what they did. Verse 28, when they heard this, they were furious and began shouting, great is Artemis of the Ephesians. Soon the whole city was in an uproar. They got mad. They got violent. It was a full-on riot. Verse 29. The people seized Gaius and Aristarchus, Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia, and all of them rushed into the theater together. See, they didn't find Paul. So they grabbed two of his buddies and they stormed into the Ephesian theater. 24,000 people, 24,000 angry people, all on their feet, shouting. Why? Why the frenzy? Why this riot? The root cause of the great Ephesian riot of 56 AD, it wasn't racial inequality, and it wasn't human rights violations, and it wasn't beer. The central cause of this riot, verse 26, Paul, says that gods made by human hands are not gods at all. Here's what was going on. The way of Jesus, it confronted some of their most beloved idols. Now today, it's easy for you and I to read a passage like this and think, oh, you know, those ancient people, so gullible, so primitive. I would never, worship a little stone statue, even if it did have 12 breasts. I wouldn't go there. But we do these people a great disservice. They were not that simple-minded. The gods that they worship, well, they were a means to an end. Artemis offered fertility. That's still in demand today. Other gods offered things like power and success and wealth and relationships. See, they wanted the same kind of things that we want. The primary difference is their worship of these things was overt and conscious, while ours tends to be covert and subconscious. An idol doesn't have to be a little stone statue. An idol can be just about anything. An idol is anything that we look to for ultimate meaning and security outside of God. Idols aren't all evil, wicked, terrible things. The most dangerous idols are good things that we over-elevate. So I'm going to mention a few modern day idols, and some of these may hit close to home and cause some resistance in you. If you get uncomfortable, or if you hear something or don't like something I say, just one ask from me. No rioting. Okay? Can we handle that one? All right, let's start here with this one. Here's a popular modern day idol. It's our stuff. Some of us have idols that are out in the parking lot. Some of us have idols that are hanging in our closets. Some of us have idols that are the roof underneath our head. We work and we stress and we worry so that we serve the almighty house payment. These things can suck up our time, always fixing, always remodeling, always upgrading, always maintaining. Is it wrong to have nice things? No. But can we over-elevate these things to the level where they become an idol? Well, yes. But here's another one, and this one might kind of surprise you. Relationships. Relationships are important, good things. The Bible encourages us to have relationships, but they can go astray. Specifically, how about this one, a romantic relationship? Anybody ever seen this movie? It's The Materialist, starring Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal. In the pivotal scene, the leading man says this to the leading lady: I am a beggar for you. When I see your face, I see the future, wrinkles, gray hair, and children that look like us. Some of you are tearing up a little bit. Others of you are more like me, and you're kind of like gagging on all the sap. Right? If you haven't seen this movie, just insert any other rom-com ever. Here's the message. Get this relationship and you're going to be happy forever. Miss this relationship and your life is over. Really? Is it possible to be happy and content and single? Paul was single. Miriam was single. Jeremiah was single. John the Baptist was single. Jesus, we're all worshiping and following a single man. He was single. It's okay to be single. You can experience fulfillment without a romantic relationship. Or here's another one. Likes. You know, some of us orient our lives around getting these, around getting this. Affirmation. Affirmation from people. The things we say, the things we do, the things we post. Well, all to get the almighty thumbs up. We want affirmation, and that's not a bad thing, but it can become an overinflated thing. Do your thoughts regularly circle back to what can I post that will attract more followers and more likes? That can be an idol. When you stand before Jesus, do you want to hear him say, well done, my good and faithful servant? Or will he say, you are living your life for the approval of people other than me? Well, I don't see any rioting yet, so I'm going to press my luck and try one more idol, and it's this one: feelings. We live in a day where feelings are considered to be sovereign. If I feel it, it must be true. Follow your heart. Right and wrong, good and bad, truth defined subjectively, defined by my personal feelings. That's popular, but that is not what Jesus taught. Jesus said things like this, John 14:6, I am the way and the truth and the life. Or in Mark chapter 8, verse 34, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. When was the last time you intentionally denied yourself something for the purpose of following Jesus? See, when your feelings and Jesus aren't in alignment, which one do you tend to follow? Acts chapter 19. See, this isn't just about a statue of Artemis. You and I, we have idols too. Verse 26. He says that gods made by human hands are no gods at all. Verse 28. When they heard this, they were furious and began shouting. See, Acts 19. This isn't just some ancient story. Acts chapter 19, it shows us something. It shows us what happens when Jesus becomes more than just a belief in our head, when Jesus becomes more than just theology that we embrace. Acts 19 shows us what happens when Jesus actually enters into our life. He starts challenging some of our most treasured idols. And like these Ephesians, we are prone to resist. Because idols, well, they aren't all horrible things. The most dangerous idols are good things that we over-elevate. It can be your organization. It can be your cause. It can be your political party. It can be a job. It can be a financial portfolio. It can be a hobby. It can be social media. It can be fashion. An idol can be just about anything. Who or what do I make sacrifices for? Most modern idols are covert, and they only show up when we examine our schedule, when we examine our thought life, when we examine our bank account, when we examine our calendar. Here's a question I think God's inviting us to ask in Acts chapter 19. It's this, and let me preface it with this: no judgment on this. You don't have to give me the answer to this question. You don't have to tell anybody the answer to this question. This is really a question that I think is designed for you and God. Here's the question that is there for us in Acts chapter 19. What has the greatest potential to be an idol in your life? How would you answer that? Just between you and God. What has the greatest potential to be an idol in your life? Don't be blind to that. Be aware of that. Verse 34. They all shouted in unison for about 2 hours. Great is Artemis of the Ephesians. Great is Artemis of the Ephesians. For 2 hours. 2 hours is a long time to chant something. 2 hours is a long time to stand next to somebody who is shouting something. 2 hours. And Paul, he says, well, I want to go in there. Why? Why did Paul want to go in there? Well, here's why. He wanted to tell these anti-Jesus rioters, he wanted to tell them about Jesus. That is so Paul. The other followers of Jesus, they wisely prevented Paul from doing that. And this passage concludes with the leading government official in Ephesus showing up. He knows the Romans are going to hold him responsible for this uprising. So he quiets the crowd and he says this, verse 38. If then Demetrius and his fellow craftsmen have a grievance against anybody, the courts are open and there are pre-councils. They can press charges. Here's what he said. He said, we have a system of justice for this kind of thing. Calm down. Be patient. Due process of law, not frenzied rioting. Well, the crowd agrees and disperses, and Paul lives to see another day. Acts chapter 19. Here's the summary. Paul shares the gospel. People eliminated their idols, and the entire city was changed. The Holy Spirit so transformed the hearts of these people that there was no longer money to be made on things like narcotics or things like, pornography. There just wasn't a business for that. Can you imagine? Oh, for the day when the human trafficking industry goes bankrupt because so many people are following Jesus. That's this. That's Acts chapter 19. In Acts chapter 19, I know of no other place where the gospel so changes an entire city that it disrupts the economic system of that city. And so here's the question. When we encounter a passage like this in the Bible, here's the question that I think we should be asking. We should be asking, well, how did that happen? I mean, that would be kind of amazing. We would love to be able to see, the city and our community and our nation turn to the Lord. We'd love to see that kind of thing happen. Well, how did they do it? It happened here. What did they do? Sometimes, today, Christians have a reputation. And a reputation as being the most critical, judgmental people on the planet, defined by what we oppose rather than what we believe. Look at this. Look at Acts chapter 19. Did they have a march against the temple of Artemis? No, they didn't. Well, what did they carry posters slamming Demetrius? No, they didn't do that. No personal attacks, no protests. Not saying there's never a place for something like that, but they didn't need that here. They didn't do any of that stuff in Acts chapter 19. They didn't need to. Why? Because of this. Verse 26. Gods made by human hands are no gods at all. They didn't need to protest against Artemis because Artemis can never provide lasting fulfillment. And neither can any of these. All of these modern day Artemis, they're never going to fulfill stuff. Not evil, but it's not going to fulfill us. Romantic relationships, there can be value in that, but that's not what's going to provide us lasting fulfillment. Affirmation. I mean, yay, who doesn't like affirmation? But that's not going to last. Our feelings, our jobs, our income, our health, elevating any form of Artemis. It's chasing shadows. You will never get what you're looking for because our greatest need isn't any of this stuff. Because you and I, we aren't just physical beings. We're spiritual beings. Our greatest need isn't anything. It's deeper. It's deeper. The void underneath all my wanting, what I really want, what I really need is to be connected to my Maker, to be connected to God, to have inner peace. The Bible calls that shalom. Shalom. Do you have that? Do you want that? See, that's more a matter of reorienting our inner life than our outer life. It's a byproduct of getting tight with Jesus. Acts 19, verse 23. About that time there arose a great disturbance about the way. The great Ephesian riot of 56 AD. Why? What happened? A socioeconomic upheaval. People whose jobs involved manipulating and exploiting were no longer making money because so many people left their idols and began following Jesus. The gospel changed an entire city. Amazing. How? They didn't march. They didn't protest. They didn't cancel anything. It was simply a reflection of this. Verse 26, gods made by human hands are no gods at all. They knew you and I, we have been made by God and we have been made for God. Apart from him, life will never be all it's designed to be. See, the goal isn't to just stop sinning. It's to start worshiping. It's to recognize who God is, his greatness, putting him in his rightful place in this world and in our lives, prioritizing him, pursuing him, seeking him, trusting him, following him, getting tight with him, because he will fill us. He will fulfill us. He will give us shalom. And that beats these every day of the week.